Well, it's War Games time. How would you like to play a game of Provoke North Korea?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea because we don't have enough wars right now that the United States
No.
is involved in. How many wars are we involved in? Like 10 at the moment? Let's start a new one with North Korea.
Right. So the United States is now launching war simulations and war practice games. And who is the target? North Korea. South Korea is involved in these too. And it's a joint military exercise, the first one in 5 years. And reports are that North Korean leader Kim Jong Un is really freaking out.
North Korean leader Kim Jong Un says he's ready to use nuclear weapons in potential military conflicts with the U.S. and South Korea. His comments came during a speech to war veterans today. According to state media, he accused the United States of demonizing North Korea to justify our hostile policies. He's also called the new South Korean government, quote, confrontation maniacs.
He's really upset about it. So the first joint military exercise in 5 years, the Americans, South Koreans will polish up what military are calling the kill chain, in which they target North Korea's missile and nuclear sites and go for a decapitation, meaning an assassination of Kim Jong Un. So all in one attack. This is what would unfold, right? So you're going to go after another world leader in an assassination attempt. Now,
They use the term decapitation to sort of infer that you would take out the leader, right? So that it would, because
take the head of the snake off is what they call it. Right?
Exactly that, right? It's not a literal procedure. Although, if you are the person that they are practicing this move about, you wouldn't like to hear that, I'm sure.
No, so this mere identity, this mere mention of this, that this is what the United States and South Korea are planning, according to analysts saying that this has infuriated Kim Jong Un. I want to know, like, how do these analysts get information out of North Korea? Like, really? It's like, to me, this sounds like phony liberal press stirring the pot.
Well, yeah, because it's not like he's not sitting down for interviews.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
hey, we sat down with Kim Jong Un today, and we had a really deep discussion about this.
And
You
it
can't
is a
even
steel
go there.
trap, right? You can't go there. You can't get media out of there. I don't know who would know that this is freaky. And some analysts are saying, it's making him so paranoid. They're starting to run more drills in retaliation. They've already been sort of talking about nuclear proliferation and running their 7th test, the first since 2017, and that he only travels at night because he is, sort of so freaked out that the raid on the Al-Qaeda leader just earlier this week was his worst nightmare. So who knows? I mean, how do we know? This is kind of like the media telling us how Putin feels, right? How other leaders feel. We don't know.
Well, I mean, so and the U.S. is not saying one way or the other whether or not they're actually doing this. That this course comes on the heels of what we understood from North Korea doing military exercises a few weeks ago, nuclear tests and nuclear drills. So reports are that one of Kim Jong Un's biggest fears is being caught out in the open in a drone attack. I mean, isn't that all of our fears though? Like somebody could make that up and say that that's one of the big fears, that he could be killed.
Sure. And I mean, it's sort of retired diplomats who say that, right? So how do they know? What connections do they have? We can't really say, although I am the kind of person who gets very anxious when I walk around and see drones in the air. I don't like it. Even sort of civilian drones, like play drones.
Yeah, even when my son is playing with his drone, you're like, what is that? Who's coming
The
for me?
other day, I was working in my office, and my son and my nephew were flying their drone outside the window behind me, and I was like, this, and I heard this, and it was flying right behind me, and they're like, did you see that?
Yeah.
So yes, I am. That's nowhere on the level of Kim Jong-un's fear.
So let's unpack this. I mean, if we do a dry run, like this is what the United States and South Korea are planning right now, which is a regime change, an overthrow of a nuclear power, right? Why do this right now? Of all times to be doing this dry run, this move while you're stirring the pot with China, while you're actively stirring the pot with Russia, while you're sticking your neck into Syria, while you're sticking your neck into Somalia, while you're launching drone strikes in the heart of Afghanistan, which we're supposed to be out of Afghanistan, right? We're not supposed to be.
I mean, it's kind
involved
of
in
obvious.
Afghanistan at all. Is it obvious?
It's kind of obvious to me why we do it, because we have to spend that military budget in order to justify getting it again next year.
I guess. I mean, it also feels like, it's just a review on all the people and all the nationalities that the United States thinks that we should mark as our enemies in the run up to an important election year.
The kill chain is the first axis of South Korea's 3-axis defense plan, focusing on the intelligence and strike capabilities necessary to detect and preempt North Korean missile launches. The second is Korea massive punishment and retaliation, which would, of course, have the decapitation with special forces snuffing out the target. One target, and that target is Kim Jong Un. If you start to look at and dive deeper into the war games and the plans inside of North Korea, and you start to study like the tunnel structure and all of the hidden bunkers and all of those things. I mean, you absolutely think you could go in there and do this into this regime with some quick, that this is what we're going to do, just overthrow this country in this one swift move, taking out the leader and then launching these strikes, and that's it. And you reestablish an entire region?
I don't think that, but I know the military has much more loftier goals than I would understand.
Yeah. Analysts are convinced North Korea is ready for its 7th nuclear test since 2017. So they're starting to move on this 2017 nuclear test as Americans and South Korea's target Kim Jong Un and his closest allies. So they're saying this decapitation resembles attacks on the North Korean nuclear forces, and that you have to locate the target, refine that location, identify possible munitions that could be used against it. So why, you're going to hit nuclear targets right next to South Korea? How would South Korea even go along with this? You're going to blow up nuclear bunkers where you could have, clouds of radioactive materials wafting down right across the parallel right into South Korea, wipe out an entire, first of all, and then what would China do about this, of course, right?
Yeah, these are major questions and they're extremely dangerous to think about. I have no answers for them.
Another Korean war we could have would make the war in Ukraine, they say, pale in comparison, even if nuclear weapons weren't used. If nerve agents and nukes are used, we would probably see a greater number of deaths here than occurred during the fighting from 1950 to 1953 in the first Korean War.
And so in response, every time it seems like just a news cycle that every 3 or 4 months we get U.S. intelligence saying that North Korea is testing nuclear weapons. All those words come together. You get nuclear, that they continue to test nuclear weapons against international treaties, against doing that. And they don't care, right? It continues to happen. So this is a very dangerous bear to provoke at this point.
Yeah. Let us know in the chat and your comments what you think about this. War games dangerous?
It's like the United States goes to the zoo. And it's like, it's not enough that we sit there and we poke the lions. It's like, ooh, there's tigers over there too. Let's go provoke them. And we're just sitting there like provoking all these different things at the same time. And it's just like, at what point are we going to realize that our foreign policy is very dangerous and makes us more unsafe than if we didn't do it this way?
I mean, I think the collapse of the United States, it's the inevitable collapse. You're watching Western civilization in decline.
But because of that decline is why I think, someone who's losing popularity has to go and, pick fights in the cafeteria to prove their strength, even if you lose them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, it's like Flash Thompson in the Spider-Man comics, right? It's like he's going to go pick on Peter Parker to try to prove his bully status,
Yep. And then every single time along comes a bigger person and takes care of the bully. Every time. It's inevitable.